Have you ever been in a meeting where you understood every single word, but the sentences themselves made absolutely no sense? Well, today we're going to tear apart the baffling, sometimes brilliant, and often just bizarre world of corporate jargon. And we're going to use this incredible case study as our guide, a high-stakes showdown between two absolute masters of corporate doublespeak. Okay, let's dive in.
We're going to tackle this just like an instruction manual. First, we'll drop into the war room to set the scene. Then we'll watch the jargon in action, and after that, we'll use something called the playbook. Think of it as our secret decoder ring to figure out the real story in the buried ledger before we get to a final kind of meta instruction.
So, step one, you have to understand the environment. Picture this, a high-pressure war room video call. The project deployment monitor is just flashing red, critical error. You can feel the tension, the coffee is probably very expensive, and the language is, well, you're about to find out.
And boom, we are off to the races. The project director, a guy named Praxis, opens with this volley of pure, uncut jargon. You hear those key words, right? Legacy architecture, technical debt, agile pivot. This one sentence is the whole puzzle right here. It's setting up a fight that isn't really about technology. It's about who controls the store. All right, on to step two, where we see how this whole thing builds. We're just listening to the performance, this absurd back and forth where language isn't really for communicating, it's for dominating. You know, it's less of a conversation and more like a cage fight with buzzwords.
Now, this is where it gets really good, because you see the total disconnect. Praxis states a simple, urgent problem. We need to go live within the hour. But the lead architect, Valavan, he doesn't respond with a solution. Oh no, he responds with a philosophical awakening. The server isn't down, it's mindful. It's a truly brilliant defensive pivot away from reality.
And here's the escalation. Praxis counters that philosophical jargon with his own brand of process-oriented jargon. He doesn't have the bandwidth. He needs FTE optimization. See what he's doing? He's not even arguing the point. He's changing the language of the entire battlefield to one where he has the advantage. So how in the world do we make sense of any of this? Well, that brings us to step three. We're unlocking the playbook. Our source material gives us this fantastic decoder ring to help us translate what's actually being said. So the playbook uses this two-level method. First, we do what's called the Anvaya. That's just a fancy way of saying a word-by-word decoding. We figure out what the terms mean on the surface. But then, and this is the really crucial part, we look for the buried ledger. That's the hidden motivation behind why they're saying it. Okay, time for step four. Let's actually put this method into action and see how it works. We're going to apply the Anvaya and break these phrases down, piece by piece. Let's start with the crown jewel here, high-latency mindfulness. According to our playbook, this is literally the act of reframing a catastrophic server error as some profound philosophical achievement. The computer isn't broken, no, it's just in a deep state of meditation. It's an absolutely incredible deflection. And look at how Valavan builds this illusion. He takes this beautiful line from Shakespeare, from Much Ado About Nothing, and he just completely corrupts it. He's hijacking the cultural authority of Shakespeare to give his technical failure an air of poetic justice. You can't make this stuff up. So the whole point, the intent, is to reframe a disaster as a deliberate choice. The system didn't crash because of a bug. It went silent because it achieved some higher state of being. It's really a masterful way to avoid taking any blame. Now for that term Praxis used, technical debt. You know, in the tech world, this is a pretty neutral term. It just means you have some old, messy code or systems that you'll have to pay down or, fix eventually. It's like the messy closet in your house. But look at how it's used here. It is not a neutral observation. It is a weapon. Praxis is using this term to pin the entire failure on Valavan, blaming decisions made in the past for a problem that was actually caused by his own completely unrealistic deadline. The meaning gets twisted to serve the argument. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole source material. It actually gives instructions to create this exact chart, and it just perfectly visualizes the absurd logic. I mean, sure, our server response time might be at 0, but look how high our spiritual alignment is. It's the ultimate corporate sleight of hand. When you can't show real data, you just invent a new metric you can win at. So now that we've decoded the words, it is time for the final level of our analysis, the buried ledger. Why are they really talking like this? What is the hidden game being played underneath it all?
So when Praxis actually agrees to call this whole failure optimizing the spiritual architecture, what is he really saying? What's that secret little entry he's making in his mental ledger? And there it is. That's the truth. That's the buried ledger entry. It has absolutely nothing to do with technology or philosophy or spirituality. It is pure, uncut corporate self-preservation. He has no clue what the problem is, but he sure knows how to survive the bureaucracy. So the crucial point is this. Praxis's real goal isn't to fix the problem. It's to invent a new project name to hide the failure, to protect his own performance metrics, and ultimately to keep his job. The jargon is just a smokescreen for survival. And this brings us to our final and maybe the most fascinating instruction. The source material we've been using to deconstruct this corporate satire, it actually includes its own instructions for how to package and produce this very critique. It is unbelievably meta.
I mean, check this out. The source literally provides prompts for an AI to generate assets, a slide deck, an infographic, a video trailer. So it's a critique of corporate communication that has its own meticulously planned corporate communications strategy. It is deconstructing the playbook while writing a whole new one.
Which leaves us with what the source calls its lesser moral. And it's just a cynical gem. A system crash isn't a failure if you can successfully rebrand it, right? If you can wrap it in enough jargon and present it in a long enough PowerPoint, it becomes a strategic initiative.
And that's our explainer. It leaves us with a really provocative question to think about. When the language we use to describe our work becomes more important than the work itself, what is the actual product? Is it the software? Is it the service? Or is it just the story we tell about them? Thanks for watching.